Good afternoon. Welcome back to the CAVP experience. Today I want to talk just a little bit about the brain. Now this past Sunday was Easter Sunday 2017, and for many of my weight loss clients, this weekend represented a pretty tough weekend with all of the goodies that usually get served up: Cadbury eggs, Easter bunnies, and jelly beans. And here's a typical scenario that I encountered this week. And, actually it's something that occurs much more often than you can imagine. So my client walks into the grocery store on Easter Monday just to get a few essentials. She's had a pretty good weekend, stayed away from the candy, and she's feeling pretty good about that. And she has no intention of purchasing anything other than some fresh produce, some chicken, and some frozen veggies for the week. And that's when this thought hits her. Oh, it's Easter Monday. I wonder how much candy is in the markdown aisle. Now, of course, I'm not going to buy any. I just want to see how much is left and how far they've marked it down. No harm in that, right? So she ultimately finds herself at the back of the store staring at the jelly beans that have been marked down 75%. And this thought then enters her mind. 75% off, huh? Just can't pass that up now, can I? I won't eat any, but it would be nice to have some candy around for when the grandkids are there. So I'll just buy one bag. So far, so good, right? But on the way home, thoughts of having some of those jelly beans, just a taste of them, start swirling through her head. And by the time she gets home and unpacks the groceries, her brain has taken on a brand new idea. I'll just eat a few of these jelly beans and put them away. A few won't hurt, right? So after unpacking her groceries, she rips open the bag and grabs a handful. And boy, do they taste good. And just as she has bargained with herself to do, she dutifully wraps up the bag and puts it back in the pantry. She goes about the business of cleaning up the kitchen, but she just can't stop thinking about those jelly beans. She hears her brain saying, how about just a few more? After all, you were so good over Easter. So she finds herself back in the pantry, grabbing another handful and really enjoying the almost sinful nature of what she's doing. Now this time, she wraps up the bag real tight and actually hides it away back behind some other packages in the pantry, as if she's hiding it from herself or somehow making it harder to access. Now, she realizes, as she's telling me the story, just how silly it sounds when she says it out loud. But in that moment, it seemed like such a good idea, one that might just work to deter her from eating anymore. Now, of course, the hiding doesn't really work. She finds herself grabbing the bag again. Now, this time, she's starting to get a bit uneasy as she takes another handful. She's starting to realize she's losing her grip on her resolve to just have a few. She's starting to feel that bit of out of control. So she swears to herself, this is the last time. She honestly can't tell me how many times it actually did occur. 5, 6. What she knows for sure is that ultimately she ate the whole bag that day. And it's as if her brain wants to really just erase the record of what happened. Yet she knows it did happen. The next thought she remembers consciously having is this. Oh my God, it's almost gone. This bag's almost empty. And this thought triggered a cascade of thinking that went something like this. Man, I can't believe I ate most of this bag. I really blew it. I might as well blow it big. You know what? I'm just going to eat the rest of these. Get this over with. Get the temptation out of the way. I can start this again tomorrow. And she proceeds to do just that. And as she's throwing that empty bag in the trash and pushing it way, way down as far as she can so nobody will find it, she feels pretty sick to her stomach. And now the barrage of self-loathing thoughts begins. You idiot. You're so weak. What's wrong with you? You're such a failure. You're never going to get this right. Why do you even try? Sound familiar? Of course it does. But yet, everyone who does this somehow thinks they're unique. So let's just get one thing straight right out of the gate. My client is not stupid, weak, deficient, feeble, powerless, or defective. This is simply her brain doing what it's designed to do, period. Our brains come pre-wired to get as many calories on board as we can whenever they are available. We store the extra body or the extra calories in our bodies as body fat for those times when calories just aren't available. And our brains know full well what kinds of fuel produce the highest energy for the least amount of work. And that turns out to be processed carbohydrates and processed sugars. Yeah, jelly beans. They're super easy to digest and they pack a punch. Do you think it's any accident that we don't have the same kind of cravings for a bag of baby carrots as we do for a bag of jelly beans? Do you think for a minute that your brain doesn't know the difference in terms of the differential between energy expended and energy gained? Trust me, it knows. I have never had that first person tell me that they ate just a few carrots, put the bag away, and couldn't quit thinking about those carrots until they had gone back enough times and the whole bag was gone, and that they felt horrible for eating that whole bag of carrots. Nope, never happened. And I don't think it's ever going to. And that's because our brains know the difference between carrots and jelly beans. So, if you think that the craving for jelly beans represents some kind of a weakness, guess again. It is simply our built-in biological propensity to onboard the most energy with the least amount of effort whenever we can get it. The level at which we crave jelly beans, as compared to the level at which we might crave baby carrots, is pretty much identical to the difference between the glycemic index of the two. Think about that for a minute. But that's not the end of the story. These instructions to get as many jelly beans on board as possible, and as silly as they may seem to our minds in the moment, are really the job of the limbic system, which is pretty much responsible for our survival. The reason that we can't quit thinking about the jelly beans until we've eaten the whole bag is purely a biological endeavor. And it's really representative of a system that works hard and works well. The fortunate thing is that the limbic system is not the only system in the brain. There is an opposing system called the cerebral cortex system. Now, these two systems actually serve as good checks and balances for one another. So when the limbic system gets out of control, the cerebral system serves as what we can think of as a servo mechanism or a control mechanism, a corrective device to put the limbic system back in check. The biggest problem is that most people have not yet learned how to engage the cerebral cortex to balance that power between these two systems. CAVP, Cognitive Audiovisual Programming, is just this: a system for putting the cerebral cortex in charge of the limbic system. Now, this is no easy task because the limbic system is very strong and very fast. The cerebral cortex, however, is much, much larger. So what the cerebral cortex lacks in speed and strength, it more than makes up for in size and complexity, and the vast networks that it can integrate together to amplify signal strength in the brain. CAVP is an integrated approach that maximizes the complex networking power of the cerebral cortex to actually override the limbic system when necessary. So what my client is experiencing is not weakness. It's not a defect, but rather an inequity. An inequity in the balance between the two systems, and one that favors, unfortunately, the limbic system by at least a little bit. Tapping the power of the cerebral cortex To tip that balance in favor of the cerebral cortex involves so much more than just simply willpower. In fact, willpower is really a unicorn. It doesn't even exist. Yeah, you heard me right. There is no power in the desire to leave those jelly beans alone. The power lies in commandeering the vast networks in the cerebral cortex and integrating them together to create a superpower, a mega network of sensory inputs and outputs that collectively has the power to override the biological blueprint in the limbic system that demands that we get those jelly beans on board at all costs. The cerebral cortex is where we can develop the concept that it is indeed perfectly safe and a good idea to leave available fuel on the table. It's where we can reason that there is enough fuel already on board, body fat, to power the system for many days or weeks or perhaps even months should fuel suddenly become unavailable. That the likelihood that passing on those jelly beans is putting us at a survival disadvantage, that's almost zero, barring, of course, the craziest of unforeseen circumstances. Essentially, I'm not going to run out of fuel anytime soon. There's always external fuel available. The fridge, a few feet away, usually is fully stocked, and the grocery store is just minutes away. So, I want to dispel here any notions that you or anybody who eats those jelly beans is weak because you ate that whole bag of jelly beans. The fact of the matter is that you are actually mentally strong. And you could see it as way too strong in one part of the brain, the limbic system. We simply need to beef up the networking power in the cerebral cortex to bring the system back into balance. Now, I use the word simple, but don't mistake that for being easy. The strategies for beefing up the cerebral cortex and getting it strong enough to win this fight is not rocket science, logistically speaking. I can teach anybody to do this, and I do mean anybody. If you know how to tie your shoes, then you have everything necessary to learn this process. But by the same token, it's not easy. It takes the hard work of much practice and much repetition to get it right. It's the veritable difference between teaching someone to hit a golf ball and having that someone win a golf tournament. The difference being hours of practice on the practice range and even more practice on the course. You get what I'm saying here? I can teach you how to do it, but the practice strokes, that's up to you. So, if you want to learn to engage the cerebral cortex, to balance the power between these two systems in your brain, and effectively leave the jelly beans on the table, give me a shout. See you on the cerebral side.